Hello, real estate investing fools. I am back with Allison, who I talked to earlier this year. He is the CEO of Pacaso, which is a marketplace that makes buying and owning a luxury second home easy. It offers integrated financing and sales on beautiful turnkey homes from as little as a quarter to half ownership, along with professional property management. This idea has really caught fire. I interviewed Austin earlier this year when he had his $75 million Series B. Now they're announcing another big round. So welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, you've just had this massive growth trajectory with Pacaso. What's the engine behind all of that?
Well, I think that really what's driving it is there's a lot of families out there that are interested in owning second homes. And this has been a desire that many families have had for a long time. But the thing that prevents people from owning the second home is the cost and the hassle. And by cost, I mean, many people can't afford to realize the second home dream because second homes tend to be in very expensive markets and they're highly underutilized. On average, second homes are only utilized 5 weeks per year. So what Pacaso has done is build a service and a platform that empowers people to co-own homes together. And the benefit of this for consumers is that it enables you to right-size your ownership. Instead of buying 100% of something that you're only going to use 10% of the time, with Pacaso, you can buy just 12.5% or 25%, whatever fits the needs of your lifestyle. And it's a more responsible, both financially and socially, way to own real estate. So I think that's why it's really taken off, is it solves a meaningful problem for a lot of people.
You've expanded into markets really quickly. How many markets are you in now?
Yeah, so last time we spoke, I think we were in about a dozen markets or so earlier this year. And now we're in more than 25 top second home destinations around the U.S. And we've added a number of really amazing markets recently, including places like Aspen, Colorado, Vail, Colorado, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale in South Florida, as well as a number of places in Southern California, Utah. So, these are destinations that you would typically associate with second home markets, meaning there's a large number of second homes already in these destinations, and they're very desirable. In addition to these markets, one of the other things that we're really excited to announce is that we're expanding into Spain. So Spain is going to be our first European market. And by the end of the year, you'll be able to go to Pacaso.com and find a beautiful home in Spain. And we have several other markets that'll follow shortly thereafter throughout Europe, as well as places like Mexico and the Caribbean.
What are some of the complications of expanding into those markets? Traditionally, owning a home in another country can be pretty complicated. What kind of steps have you taken as you evolve Pacaso into other markets?
Yeah, so the answer to this question really applies across all markets, both domestically as well as globally, which is that real estate ownership is non-trivial, meaning there's a lot of pieces to it. Everything from financing to furnishing the home to managing the home and repairing the home when things break. And then in the co-ownership use case, you also have this dynamic around the owner relationship. How do they share the calendar? How do bills get paid and all that good stuff? Pacaso handles every detail from start to finish. So as an owner that is co-owning a home, leveraging Pacaso, you just get to show up and enjoy your home without any of the hassle. And I would add, though, that there's definitely an added complexity when you're buying real estate across borders, because oftentimes the way that the transactions get done and the legal entities that are used and the process is different. And if you're not from that country, you may not be familiar with or have the access to the attorneys or real estate professionals to get that deal done. So absolutely, Pacaso addresses that complexity as well and is making it really easy to buy real estate abroad.
So you're announcing this $125 million Series C with participation from SoftBank's Vision Fund 2 and also Fifth Wall, which is a rapidly evolving real estate venture capital fund. What did those companies see in Pacaso that made them want to participate?
Yeah, so we're announcing and just to give you some of the details on the round, we're announcing a $125 million Series C, which is at a 1.5 billion valuation that's led by SoftBank and Fifth Wall, as you mentioned. And that brings our total funding to date to $215 million in equity. And we've secured, a lot more debt than that as well. And I think one of the things that's really interesting about this round is that this Series C comes less than a year after we launched the company on October 1st of last year. So it's moving really quickly. And to answer your question around what the investors are looking for, I think what all investors are looking for is, caliber of the team. Is this a team that has experience in the space and is really passionate about the mission? And does the investor believe that this is the right team for this opportunity at this time? I think the second thing that investors are looking for is product market fit. Is this problem solving a big problem or addressing a big opportunity in the marketplace? And is that evidenced by the growth and the traction of the business? And then I would say that the final thing is just the total size of the opportunity. And with the second home category in particular, this is a multi-trillion dollar market opportunity. I mean, there's 120 million second homes around the world. Most of those second homes sit vacant for 10 to 11 months per year. So there's a lot of empty homes out there, and there's hundreds of millions of families who aspire to own second homes but are unable to realize that dream. So this is a solution that's really addressing that gap in the market and connecting more people with these empty homes. And I think on the product market fit front, what the investors were really attracted to about Pacaso is the business's growth. I mean, we've gone from, zero to, last quarter, we had almost 2 million people visit our website, which is up about 200% over the quarter prior. And again, we had, zero back in October 1st of last year. Revenues have gone from zero to 330 million as our annualized revenue run rate as of the end of Q2. So there's just an incredible amount of growth and traction with the business model, largely because there's a lot of people out there who want to own second homes, and this is a smarter and better and more responsible way to do it.
So you mentioned that 120 million second homes and them sitting empty. Are you actively targeting people who may already own a home and trying to get them into the Pacaso system? Or when you're purchasing homes, are they mostly homes that people are getting ready to sell the whole thing versus a section of it?
We do both. So we have a lot of sellers that come to us. We call this a sell down, where if you own a second home, 100% of a second home, but you're like most people in the sense that you only use it 5 or 6 weeks a year, you can now call Pacaso and sell part of your home. You can take advantage of this great market where home prices are strong, take some chips off the table, and still retain 25 or 50% of the home that you know and love. So that is definitely a common scenario. But we also buy luxury homes that come to market through the traditional process as well. But I would say the main thing to emphasize about the types of homes that we're serving, we really focus on luxury homes, arguably ultra luxury homes in many of these markets. We're typically, 4 times the median price in the markets where we operate. And these are homes that would have typically sat empty. If you just look at the numbers and the market data, most second homes sit vacant for 10 plus months per year. And all the homes that we're buying are homes that would typically be bought by a second homeowner in these locations.
Well, let's talk about price a little bit, because we've seen record luxury sales, record home prices, especially in these vacation markets. The last year has been really big for that. We're starting to see just a little bit of a cooling off coming. Is that an opportunity that Pacaso is looking at, that maybe prices might stabilize a bit?
Yeah, we are seeing a bit of a cooling off. You're right, which is good news, because things got just absolutely crazy there at the height of the pandemic. Back in April, we were seeing price increases that were almost 30% year over year on average, and now second home markets are seeing price increases that are about 15%. Call it 14 to 15% year over year on average, which, by the way, is still higher than what we see in primary home markets. Primary home markets are increasing about 12% now year over year. So second home markets are still much hotter than primary home markets, but it is cooling off a bit. In terms of the impact that it has on us, it doesn't really impact our model in a meaningful way. Like the people who are buying these second homes through Pacaso, this is a luxury purchase. This is a luxury home. It's a discretionary purchase, right? So whether it's you're spending $500,000 on a 12.5% interest or $525,000 on a 12.5% interest is not that material of a difference to the consumer. So I think our model really ebbs and flows with the dynamics of the market. It's not really impacted by pricing in the same way that like a primary home would be at the median tier. But one thing that this price cooling off does do that's really great for communities is it's making homes more affordable it's hard to say affordable. The prices are still insane and affordability is an issue in almost all of these markets. But I do think that as prices cool off a bit and co-ownership in particular becomes more well-known and more adopted as a better way to own second homes, the benefit for the local workforce is that this model redirects demand away from the median tier into the luxury price tier. So a family who's buying a $500,000 or $600,000 interest in a Pacaso home is somebody who would have otherwise been buying a median price home, taking inventory away from the local workforce. So as our model becomes more adopted and we're able to move more people into the luxury price tier, I do think that this cooling off that we're seeing in the market will help to create some more opportunity for the local workforce.
Let's talk a little bit about community, because your company has seen some protests in the Napa market. How have you been handling that, and what does it mean for your business?
Yeah, it's a great question. So any new idea takes time to be understood. And what's interesting about this is that co-ownership is actually not a new idea. It's been around for decades and decades, and it's very common in all the markets where we operate. So in Napa and Sonoma County, for example, the market where you mentioned we faced some resistance. There's over 30,000 homes that are non-owner occupied as a primary residence and owned in an LLC or a trust, which are multi-member entities, just like Pacaso. So this ownership structure of LLC ownership with multiple members is very, very, very common in all the markets where we operate. But Pacaso, for the first time, is a company that's providing a service around this type of ownership. So I think people are now just becoming aware of it, and it feels like a new concept. If you weren't up to speed on those facts about how common it really is, it may seem like a new concept. And new concepts take time. And real estate is a sensitive topic. It really is. Whether you're talking about accessory dwelling units or affordable housing projects or real estate's a sensitive topic right now, rightfully so, because affordability is a problem. So I think we as a society and we as, business people within the real estate industry, I think we all have a responsibility to be part of the housing solution, not part of the housing problem. And the housing problem, this affordability problem, is really being fueled by two things: a shortage of supply and an abundance of demand. On the supply side, there's just not enough homes available for sale, and we can't build homes fast enough to keep up with the demand. And on the demand side, there's an influx of new people, largely second homeowners and investors and some primary homeowners, who are now going into these second home markets, buying up all the inventory. And the combination of that new demand plus a shortage of supply is driving up prices, making it near impossible for locals to afford homes. So really the only two things that we can do to solve this problem and mitigate some of that pain is to build houses more quickly and leverage, innovative new construction, modular, sustainable, housing technologies to build homes faster. That's one way that we can help to solve the problem. The other way that we can help to solve the problem is by making better use of the existing supply. And given that we have thousands of empty second homes sitting in these markets, there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity to redistribute the demand and consolidate it into these empty second homes, because every second home that's sitting there empty is another home that has to be built to absorb demand. It's pulling supply, off of the market, because with our model, you could take up to 8 families and put them in a single home. Whereas without co-ownership, those same 8 families would have been buying up median price homes and taking them off the market, thus furthering the housing crisis problem. And the last thing that better utilization does is it helps the environment. Every time we have to build another house that's sitting there empty, consuming energy and expanding the carbon footprint, of homes in a community, that's bad for society. So we think co-ownership is really part of the housing solution here. But again, it takes time for those facts to be understood. And I think they will be understood in time in Napa and Sonoma.
Thank you for answering that one. So rapid growth, your staff seems to be growing by leaps and bounds. You're doing that 100% remote. What has that experience been like?
Yeah, that experience has been pretty amazing, actually. So my co-founder and I, long before the pandemic, when we were working on and planning for this company, we actually decided to be fully distributed before the pandemic ever happened. And to be honest, we were a little bit nervous about it at first. We had never done a fully distributed company. We both came from an environment where we love the energy that builds in an office. But I got to tell you, it's been amazing. And maybe the pandemic helped to sort of solidify this model for us a little bit. But we now have 120, actually well over 120 people on our team, which is up 400% since the start of the year. So we've been growing very quickly. Our team is spread across 20 markets in 3 countries now. And until recently, until we all met for our annual retreat, where everybody in the company comes together and meets in person, until we did that a couple of weeks ago, most of us had never met in person. And when we all met for the first time, it felt like we had been working together for 10 years. So it's really been amazing. I'm a huge proponent of distributed work. I think it's the future. It may not be for every company, but I think for a lot of companies, this is the future of work. And it really opens up a great deal of potential when you can recruit amazing people from anywhere, and when you can provide your team with the flexibility and empower them, to work from where they want to live. Because our homes, our primary homes and our secondary homes and our communities that we're part of, these things really define who we are. And when you empower somebody to be in the home and the community that they really love, they end up doing better work as well. So it's good for the employee, good for the company, and therefore good for the mission of the company.
It definitely seems like something a lot of other companies are looking at too. So last question for you, and it seems kind of crazy to ask this given that in 1 year you've had this huge growth. What does Pacaso look like 5 years from now?
Yeah, so I think 5 years from now, Pacaso will be in well over 100 destinations around the world. And hopefully by that time, it's not just limited to the U.S., Europe, Mexico, and the Caribbean. I think there will be other parts of the world that will be included in that footprint. I think we'll have probably 3,000 people on our team by that point, and I think that we'll be in a lot more markets that have more approachable home prices. Right now, we're in the most expensive markets in the world. Places like Aspen and Miami and Napa and Malibu. I mean, these are places where homes are just very, very, very expensive. And therefore, the entry price to get into a Pacaso is very, very expensive today. But once we get to a point where we can enter some of these secondary second home markets that are very regionally relevant to people in various areas, I think the home prices will come down a little bit, making second home ownership more accessible to a broader audience. And I think that's really what excites me the most, because the mission of our company is about accessibility. It's about enriching people's lives by making second home ownership more accessible for more people. And right now, on a relative basis, our model is definitely making second home ownership more accessible, but we're still operating at a very, very, in very luxury markets. And I think as time goes on, it'll be accessible to even more people with new market expansion. And, one last thing that I'll add on that front that I think is really important is a primary benefit or byproduct of accessibility is diversification. Because when you make something that is like second home ownership, that has historically just been available, to the very wealthy elite, and you make that privilege available to a broader audience, you're going to end up getting a more diverse group of owners that are able to realize this dream. And I think that's pretty inspiring. I think every business leaders should be thinking about diversity on all levels: diversity within your employee base, diversity within your investor base, diversity within your board, and diversity within how your product offering facilitates diversity in society. And we're really proud of the fact that 30% of Pacaso owners are non-white or identify as LGBTQ. And 30% may not sound like a huge number on the surface, but when you contrast 30% against the typical composition of a second homeowner, like in Napa and Sonoma, for example, if you were to look at second homeowners in Napa and Sonoma and compare that to our 30% non-white and LGBTQ stat, I think you'd be pretty blown away at just how meaningful co-ownership is in the context of creating more opportunity for more people. So 5 years from now, I think we will have created a lot more opportunity for a lot more people and empowered more people to live enriched lives through this second home ownership dream.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Austin.
Thanks, DJ.